What's up, guys? Welcome back to Beyond the Perception. As always, thank you guys for your support and comments on the TikToks and YouTube videos.
Yeah, welcome back. We really appreciate all the comments, likes, subscribers on both our YouTube videos and our TikTok, so we greatly appreciate that.
So we were gonna take this episode to dive into ancient civilizations, but instead we decided to dive into alien films, and the first one we chose to watch was District 9 to get an understanding of how Hollywood and society views aliens.
I think our plan with this whole alien narrative is are gonna plan on watching multiple alien movies just to see, like he explained, we want to get an idea of how society in Hollywood views aliens and how they think we would interact with them and basically that they're a threat. So you kind of want to get that perspective from Hollywood.
Yeah, and whenever we were watching District 9, we noticed a lot of like trends that we saw in other movies and a lot of trends that we didn't see in other movies. So we kind of just want to like dive into that and like give our opinions on what we think is interesting that could be a potential in reality. But to start us off, District 9 is a movie about a group of aliens called prawns. Basically these aliens arrived on Earth. They did not want to come to Earth, and they didn't come to Earth with the goal of taking over or attacking us. But they simply just wanted to find a place to live because their old planet was dying. At the beginning when the aliens first arrived, like humans were humans really welcomed them to Earth, and it was like kind of a chill time because they were like new and we didn't really know what was going on. But about 28 years later, I think is what it was. Public opinion about these aliens had like changed, and eventually these aliens were forced into like a confined area known as District 9. So to start us off, David, what were your thoughts on the movie?
My thoughts on the movie were that, I've never seen this movie before. I'd seen trailers of the movie. I never knew exactly what it was about. I do think this movie took a different direction on kind of the whole alien thing
Hmm.
by, you know, they were here and kind of nothing really happened. Yeah, they were doing some tests. They kind of outcasted them. It was pretty interesting how like the people reacted, how they were kind of introduced to the culture and kind of at some point, kind of just were like an everyday thing, like, oh, these are aliens. This is where they live. This is what they do, and how the culture changed with them being around.
Yeah, I agree. I think this movie was pretty good. I found it interesting how like the director didn't take the normal route of portraying these aliens as like green creatures, but like he instead did them as like nasty bugs, which is something like not every alien movie did. I also liked how instead of the aliens like actually invading Earth, like they like didn't actually want to come here, but they like had to because there was something wrong with their ship, kinda, or like they needed to find a place to live, so they were like seeing if Earth was like okay to live in, and then like what that led to is them being forced into outcast. So I kind of like found it interesting how this was like the director's take on something that could happen if aliens had showed up that were actually peaceful, you know, instead of like the normal ones that we usually see trying to invade Earth.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way they depicted it, the so-called alien, and how they looked was very different than what we're used to. They
Yeah,
they
those
were
things
did
are
look like
gross.
bugs, and yeah, they're pretty gross. But yeah,
Yeah.
they just I was not expecting them to look like that. They just basically look like really big bugs.
Yeah, they had like claws and stuff, and they just look disgusting. Whereas like usually I'm used to seeing like the weird green goblin looking things.
Yeah, yeah, like I just was not expecting that, and they
Yeah.
they just looked gross.
So like as we saw with the
Oh,
movie, oh go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna jump back to one of the points you made, how they kind of just usually when we see in like alien movies, we're seeing like aliens will come and they're trying to take over and killing people and stuff like that. They didn't really take that route in this movie. It was more of they just, kind of landed here. They couldn't leave, so they just kind of just stood around and, had to adapt to the new culture that they stumbled upon.
Yeah, and they were like very tolerant to like what humans were actually doing to them. Like I was kind of surprised they didn't fight back more.
Yeah, like you would see them like talking to the the just the people around and all the military officers and all that, and you would see them just being okay with just being confined to this area that they refer to as District 9.
Yeah, which would like be inhumane conditions if we were to do that to like any human, which is like crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And like as we saw with the film, like as time went on, people started to abuse these like the prawns more and more. And then like eventually the prawns started to have enough and they sometimes were starting to rob people. But like do you think the treatment of the prawns was justifiable? Like do you think the human fear of like these creatures was like justifiable to like what we were doing to them?
Mm, I think it's justifiable in a sense. Like the area that they landed in, I think it was Nigeria.
Yeah.
All this like the all the civilians, they kind of didn't have a choice. They kind of had to, you know, just go along with it. So they kind of didn't have a choice. So I feel like they didn't know how to necessarily treat them, and so they definitely had like feelings about it because at some point they were okay with it, and then like after 20 years they were like, yeah, we want them gone. So I think it's justified in a sense because it wasn't their choice to have these aliens live in there.
Yeah, I agree. I think like maybe they should have come together as like a world in this movie and like I would hope that and if this was to happen in real life anyways, that like as a world we would unify and kind of like give these people or these aliens like a place of their own to live in instead of like forcing them into this little tiny confined area and like like where people are around them that might be like really scared of them because let's be honest, if an alien landed on Earth, like we're not going to be okay with it. Like we're going to be scared. It's
Yeah.
something that like we're not used to seeing. Like it's rational to be like scared of them. So I hope like if this was to happen in real life and it was reality that humans would give them like a better area to live in and then one that like they would feel more safe in instead of like the nasty area that they were given because they had like a small perimeter to live in and that's just like that's not okay.
Yeah, I do think the fact that eventually at some point, some of the like civilians were just taking advantage of these aliens by, making them work, making them do things for them just for like some type of food, giving them the bare minimum just to survive, and they were okay with this. So I feel like I think that part was a little messed up that they were just abusing them and taking advantage of them and exploiting them to their own benefit. I think that part was maybe a little too much.
Yeah, I agree. Like the prawns had no way of getting food and they were giving these people like insane amount of technology that like we couldn't even build ourselves for like cat food. Like the literal bare minimum that we feed to our pets, these people were like getting robbed for. So it's just like kind of
Yeah.
crazy the extremities that people were like going to harm these creatures.
I will say I do have a question. I feel like how do you feel about the fact that, the people there were trying their hardest, or not the hardest, but they were trying to, gain some of the aliens' technology to, build weapons and, how do you feel about that?
So I
Do
found
you
it
think
really
that's something
interesting.
that
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think that's something that, could potentially like actually happen if that was around, if aliens were around?
So I think if like aliens were around in real life, I definitely think that people would try their hardest to like catch up to the technology that these aliens were like harnessing. I don't think it would be more like it would be so out in the open as like this movie like portrayed the aliens to be. I really think that we would move them to like a small facility or like something. And I hope if they were peaceful like that that we would like be better with them at negotiating because I felt like I definitely feel like people would exploit them, but I feel like the way that they were doing it was really harsh and that aliens just like wouldn't really put up with that if it was like a real situation. Like I feel like they would have just like blown us to bits with the technology they had instead of putting up with what they did.
Yeah, I think that was pretty interesting about the movie that they just like we mentioned before, they normally in movies aliens are kind of here and they just destroy and t try to take over, and in that movie they just were very tolerable and they were okay with just being quote unquote like slaves and had really no choices for themselves.
Yeah, but I definitely do think humans would try their hardest to catch up to the technology that aliens had. I don't know if we would have anything to offer them like Like in the movie, they made it seem like the prawns were like negotiating for like the bare minimum. I don't think if it was like a reality that aliens would be doing that. I feel like they're too smart for that, you know?
Yeah. There was something else I liked about the movie, and I discussed it with you like while we were watching. We would
Yep.
notice they would communicate with the prongs. Are they called prongs or prawns?
Prawns, prawns. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, but at some points they would, when they were talking to the prawns, they would communicate with them. Do you think that's eventually something that, if aliens did come here, we would be able to communicate with them, or they would like we would learn their language, or they would learn our language?
Well, we saw in the movie, they were there for it was at least 28 years. They were able to communicate with each other, and well, they were like having conversations with the prawns, and the prawns were able to understand our language, and we were able to understand theirs. So I definitely think if like a creature was on our planet for that long, the intelligence and the amount of people that we have on this earth would lead to us understanding their language fairly quickly. So I do think that that would be a pretty good possibility. What do you think?
I feel like I think I think the aliens would be smarter than us at that point, so I feel like they would probably learn our language before we learn their language. So I feel
Yeah.
like they'd be able to communicate using our language with us instead of us learning their language. I mean, I think at some point we would be able to learn their language to communicate
Mm,
with them, but I feel like they'd be able to communicate with us just because they would be able to learn faster than we could.
that is true because like if say there are aliens and they were to land on Earth, that means that they have the ability to go up into space and actually travel. Whereas like we don't even know if we landed on the moon, you know, like there's conspiracies saying that we didn't land on the moon. So like if there was aliens that could land on Earth, we already know that they'd be way more advanced than us. They probably would pick up on our language before we'd pick up on theirs.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I also found it interesting how in the movie, like I forget what the main guy's actual name was, but he was like part of the eviction process and he was like the one that was like getting documented by that camera the whole time. And eventually he got like cut and he had that like black mist shot in his face. I found it really interesting how like as soon as his hand turned to like an alien, people's perception of him instantly changed. Like the humans like that he used to like be cool with were just like not fucking with him anymore. Like they didn't like that guy at all. So I found it interesting how like his perception or people's perception of him changed really quickly. Do you think if that was like to happen in real life, do you think we'd have a similar situation?
Oh yeah, I do think it was pretty wild how he went to a hospital and they instantly saw his hand became kind of like a claw,
Yeah.
and they instantly had guns to him, packed him up, and shipped him off to some lab, and they were doing tests and trying to figure stuff out about him. I think that was pretty messed up. It was just like a switch. It wasn't They didn't even think about it. It was just like, okay, yep, let's take him to a lab and let's figure what's up with him. I do think that is something that would happen. I think just as soon as we would see that, we'd probably try to get him in a lab and try to figure what's going on there.
Yeah, I definitely think we would get him into a lab like that. I hope we'd be more humane about doing it though. Like they literally like stuffed him in this little crate and it didn't even look like he had air to breathe. Like he was struggling. And then eventually we saw him like get put into these tests against his will where they were literally electrocuting him so he would pull triggers on these alien guns. Do you think like government agencies would go as far as to do that if the
Uh,
situation was real?
yeah, I definitely think at that point, I think they would do whatever was necessary to try to understand what was going on and trying to, further their own knowledge on whatever was going on. Like at that point, like I wouldn't say it's justifiable what they did, because it was basically at some point basically torturing him and forcing him to do things that he clearly didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And I just think that's definitely something that would happen today if we did have
Mm.
aliens or someone that was, I guess, what's the word? Transforming into a alien.
Yeah. Dude, it was quick too. It happened in like 12 hours. His hand like had already turned into an alien and they were already like testing his shit.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah. And then once he walked into the lab, we saw like the experiments that they were doing the other aliens. and like the body parts of the aliens and stuff that were down there, do you think that I understand that we would try to discover the anatomy of aliens, but do you think that we would be running tests like as brutal as those that were happening in the lab? Not that we know what the tests were, but like, I mean, I think we'd do some pretty brutal things to figure out some information on these guys.
I definitely do think that would happen, and I mean, I would go as far as to say I think it, in a sense, would be necessary to do that because just because we know nothing about them. I think
Hmm.
I don't think we should it should be as far as what they were doing. It was a lot of things they were doing were messed up. I do think it would be necessary to, kind of understand them just so we have a better understanding of what they are and who they are. I think it'd be in our best interest just to, feel a little safer about aliens.
Yeah, I think a lot of this movie was just like trying to portray the public's fear of like if aliens were to actually get out onto Earth. I think it was just like a the director just went crazy on what he portrayed as like public fear and what would actually happen.
Yeah, I think the purpose of this movie was also kind of trying to make aliens human in a sense, like just making us feel that the aliens are, in a sense, a living creature, and that we
Yeah.
should not necessarily just treat them like they're an object.
Because like you said earlier, we always see movies where aliens are portrayed as like these like creatures that just want to kill us and destroy us. So I guess like everybody goes into things with like the preconception that aliens are just going to be bad and like try to kill us. And I think the director just wanted to like share his light on what would happen if the aliens were peaceful and understand like that we could be the problem instead of the aliens.
Yeah, because we got to see the main character transitioning into an alien, and we got to see how, at first he was concerned about his hand, then he was concerned about, switching back to, getting rid of the hand, being able to, be a human again and live a normal life. And at the end, he was able to, kind of understand what the aliens were going through, and he was able to kind of understand them better. And at that, he was kind of already becoming one, so he was, trying to help them escape more than worrying about himself.
Yeah, because we saw in the movie on the ship when he found out that the alien wasn't going to come back for 3 years, he was losing his shit and tried to launch the ship without him because you saw that human greed come into play. And then towards the end of the movie, he understood that this was a bigger issue than just him or that alien itself. It was like a rights issue, and he ended up like
Yeah.
helping the alien escape, which was kind of cool to see how someone's like mindset changed like that.
Yeah, we saw that he also had it wasn't the main character, but it was the main alien character. His name was Christopher, I think. He had a
Yeah, it
son,
was.
and you were able to kind of feel that connection between, a father and a son, and you were able to kind of feel bad for them just because what they were going through. There was multiple times where he was concerned about his son more than himself, and at one point when they were in the lab, he was looking at what the humans were doing to his own like species and like doing experiments on him, and at that point he kind of like lost it and didn't really care for life. And then the main character, like, told him like, you still have your son, like don't forget about your son, and then like snapped out of it and was able to like, try to live for his son.
Yeah, he found his like way of life again because he was like, holy cow, like what they did to my people was so crazy. Like this is horrible.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see how at first Christopher was very distrusting of dude, I wish we knew the main character's name, but he was very distrusting of the main character. And then like as time went on, you could see them almost develop like a sick like brotherhood. Like they would die for each other towards the end of that movie. I thought that was really cool.
Yes. Give me one second. We keep talking about this main character and we don't know his name, so I'm gonna look up his name real quick.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a guess, dude. I think it was Wittick, but I
I'm gonna
could
go
be
ahead and
wrong.
tell you it was not Wittick.
Oh fuck, dude. What was it, man?
Okay, you were close. His name was Wickus, I think.
Dang, Wickus. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds right.
Let me Wickus. Yeah, it was Wickes. Okay, I went through that entire movie without knowing his name, and I did not think it was anything similar to that.
Yeah, in my notes, all I have is main guy, main guy. Like I didn't know his name. I just have him as main guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, just to stay on topic, do you think, I don't know if I asked you this, but do you think if we had actual aliens, they would be as tolerant to our ways as the aliens in the movie were? Or do you think like
I
there would be a point that they would just like snap and just fuck us up?
I think you did ask that, but maybe not in the same way you asked it. But
Hmm.
I definitely don't think they'd be as tolerable or tolerant of whatever we're doing to them. But I mean, we also know that they didn't have a choice. I don't think they really explained what the main mothership was, doing and what the purpose of it was. So
Yeah,
we never really had to see exactly how many of this alien species there were. Because we did see they lived in a small area, so they couldn't have been that many. So I think there was really nothing they could have done really. Because we saw like the military like came in, or not the military, but the security for the MNE or whatever they were. They would come
whatever
in and they
that
were able
agency
just to
was, yeah.
bully. Yeah, they were just able to come in and bully them and like evict them at some point.
Yeah, I also found it crazy how they were like saying eviction, and that I think it was Christopher's friend maybe, or it was Christopher, like even called them out saying like this is illegal, and then they just like acted like it didn't happen, and they were still trying to evict them. So like I
Yeah,
think I think parts of that's interesting because it just shows like how humans can be a problem.
yeah. I think that was backpack backpacking on what you said there. I think it is kind of important that we didn't really give them rights.
Hmm.
If we have like laws and regulations and like how the process works with eviction, like he mentioned, you got to give them 24 hours. And with the aliens, they kind of just ignored all that, gave them no rights, just told them like, hey, you're getting evicted, you got to go.
Yeah, and then it was almost like I mean yeah, it was almost like kind of similar to like how Native Americans were treated in American history. Like they were just kind of like shunted to the side and like forced to do things that they didn't want to do. And yeah, it was just interesting to see us doing that with aliens because usually we don't, like we said earlier, like you don't see that.
Yeah, I think the Native Americans is a good example. Kind of how we just like pushed them away, kind of gave them no rights at some points.
Yeah, like we treated them horribly. Um,
Based off of that, do you think aliens deserve rights? Knowing that they're technically not from this planet, do you think they deserve rights?
so I think under the right situations they deserve rights. So I think if say like it happened exactly like it happened and they didn't necessarily want to land here but they kind of had to and they ended up being peaceful. I think right then and there the world should have been put on hold notice. Like I it was kind of big my biggest pet peeve during the whole movie is you kind of didn't see like government agencies brought in from like around the world. Like it was just like that one agency. Maybe that was the unified agency and they just like failed along the way. But I would really like to see like rights for aliens maybe. Because like if they're peaceful, like why would we want to start something with them when they have technology that we can't even fathom, you know? Because we don't know their
Yeah,
capabilities. What do you
yeah,
think?
I would agree to an extent. Like, I do think they deserve like respect, maybe some kind of rights, but I definitely think they probably shouldn't have the same rights that we do, just because we don't know anything about them.
Well, yeah, I agree that
Like,
we
if we
should
were to
give
give
them.
them
Go ahead.
like if we were to give them the same rights, who's not to say that they would abuse that and just take advantage of it?
Yeah, because if they were able to travel across the world, that means they're smarter than us and they could manipulate our laws and stuff. So I agree with you that we shouldn't give them full rights, but I think that we should give them basic rights as in like an area to live in. There's so many like islands across the globe that we could have just like put them on, you know?
Yeah,
And I feel like we could have given them their own area. We could have like respected them more because we definitely treated them horribly. And then we understood that they liked cat food, so like if that's what they like to eat, maybe we could have like gave them like a constant supply of that instead of forcing them to sell their own technology to us for it, you know? Or maybe that could have been the deal with like an actual government agency instead of the What were they Nigerian pirates that they were buying from?
I don't think it was Nigerian pirates. I think it was just like Nigerian criminals that would, like crime is obviously gonna always be a thing, and these criminals would
Yeah.
just like would stay in District 9, kind of just to, be able to live out like in, I guess, an area without any rules or police or any like restraints. So they were able to just work with the aliens.
Yeah. See, I think in a real situation there would be a lot more government interference, and there wouldn't like that wouldn't be a thing. I really don't think that. I think that crime would obviously be a thing, but I don't think it would be to the extent that it was shown in the movie.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. Like I feel like it was they were able to contain it, so I feel like there was no need for like every agency to be, part of this, like, have like the United Nations like deal with it. I feel like they were able to contain it and like nothing was going on. So I feel like they allowed whatever agency that was handling the situation to continue handling it.
Yeah. So we also saw in the movie, I forget, are they called witch doctors? Is that what they said? The person who was blessing that like alien arm and then told the dude to eat it. Do you think if this was a reality, this is kind of weird. This is like way out of topic. But do you think if it was in reality, there would be people going to the extremities as like to eating raw alien flesh to like try to gain their powers?
Uh, I don't remember the exact same name, but it was probably a witch doctor, but it was I guess them performing trying to do like black magic or whatever. But I
Hmm.
definitely do think this would be a thing. I definitely think like just humans would just would have this idea of being able to gain whatever power that they have, would try to go through extremes to obtain quote unquote power that this alien species have. I definitely think they would go as far as to eat or drink blood or do anything really to try to gain, like, quote unquote, they said they were trying to gain the powers of the aliens. I definitely think that'd be a
Hmm.
thing that would be something they would try to acquire. I mean, I think that's the same thing that the like I don't know if they were doctors or the people in the lab were trying to do. Once they saw he had an arm, they were trying to do tests on him, trying to use him to get him to use alien guns. I definitely think if there was an alien species, everyone would really try to find a way to gain their power
Yeah.
through whatever
So
whichever means possible.
so we saw with whatever agency was handling the guy who was turning, like they instantly forced him to start using their weapons. Do you think that like we wouldn't like as a world we would start fighting each other with weapons that we were able to get from the aliens, or do you think we would like come together and start trying to use them to like for the betterment of like society as like a whole, you know? Sorry, that's a
Oh no,
tough
I
question.
I think at that point it'd be like an arms race, and I think they would just race to whoever could have power of these weapons. You know, try to start to be able to like win wars and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I definitely think they would take advantage of it and try to be the biggest like superpower out there.
Yeah. See, I'm just gonna argue with you here for the sake of arguing. I think I really deeply wish and hope that if this situation was to happen, that we would come together as a whole and start building weapons together instead of to use against each other, and we would start to realize like, hey, there's bigger and badder things out there than us. Instead of like trying to fight each other on this earth, maybe we could start trying to like defend ourselves from what could be coming in the future.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like, I mean, if I think if there was like a quote unquote alien invasion, I think it would be nice if we all kind of put our differences apart and came together and try to, if they were like invading and trying to fight, I think it would be nice if we all came together and like, united and fought them, or really united in any way, really. But I don't know if necessarily I would agree on we all come together and like build weapons, just because I don't know if that would be possible, especially with other countries out there that don't necessarily get along with everybody. I don't think
Yeah.
it'd be possible. That's why I don't think we
Mhm.
should.
And humans are super greedy, so like, I agree with you. I just hope for people would think for the betterment of the whole world instead of that. But yeah.
Yeah,
But
like
I
I
guess
think at some
to
point, even if they were to do that, they would, somebody would just randomly, steal a gun and get out to the public. There's black markets everywhere. Like I don't think there's any way to contain it into, everyone's together.
yeah, and if that was to happen, dude, could you imagine the conspiracy theory world? Like, the world would be in
Oh,
shambles.
that reminded me. I do think it was kind of crazy how when the main guy, Wickus, we finally know his
Hmm.
name. When Wickus finally,
Yeah.
broke out of the lab, was running around, just trying to get food, trying to, see his wife and, try to, be safe. I think it was crazy how the media just instantly turned on him and were, spreading like propaganda about him and how they just quickly flipped on him or just spreading lies about him. I thought that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy how they instantly spread lies because we know what actually happened was that he got cut and that mist spread on him. But even in the movie, the media was portraying that he had sex with an alien, and that's how he was developing this arm to try to scare the public from him. And
Yeah, and
it's
then
almost crazy because oh, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say that they claimed that he was dangerous and everyone should like seek shelter away from him and that he was just highly dangerous.
Yeah, and I find it crazy how a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, a lot of people think that like the media lies to us like on the daily, and a lot of censorship is out there, which I mean, there's proof that some of it is. I find it crazy how the director would even go to the extremity to like improve, like include some of that, like, hey, like this is fake news, like, they're covering it up. Like it almost makes you think like, what if our government's covered up aliens, you know?
Yeah, I definitely do think that aliens are covered up in some way. Like there's Area
Hmm.
51 where I feel like they definitely are doing. I won't say definitely, but there's always been conspiracy theories that in Area 51 they're doing tests on aliens. I feel like that could kind of be a topic for another day.
Yeah, I definitely want to do some research, and then we can talk about doing a top or talk about doing an episode on Area 51 because there's a lot to come out of there, especially with the CIA files that were released in 1960s. I really want to talk about that. Yeah. But yeah, I found it crazy how the like producer actually like included a lot of this into the show. It was or into the movie. It was cool to see that there was like conspiracy theories even in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought like I said, it was a different perspective on than we're used to and seeing.
Hmm.
So it definitely was able to, open your eyes and, make you feel for the aliens. I don't think other movies
Yeah.
necessarily do that. So
No, I
I
agree with you.
definitely liked the way that the vision that they had for the movie.
Hmm. And I definitely want to continue this trend of us watching other movies and getting on our podcast and talking about it because I thought this movie was really fascinating and I want to see how other Hollywood directors portray this movie as well. But to kind of
Yeah,
finish this off, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I agree. I definitely want to watch a lot of movies because I think a lot of like alien movies. There's not really a lot of alien movies right now. Like I think a lot of alien movies was kind of around the 2000s.
Hmm.
So I think that's when, aliens were the biggest. So we're definitely going to have to watch some of those movies. If anyone has like suggestions on what movies we can watch, go ahead and throw in the comments.
Yeah, please leave us a comment and just let us know. But to kind of finish this off here, if you were to give this movie District 9 a rating out of 10, what would you give it?
Ooh, I did not think about a rating throughout the movie. What would
Hmm.
your rating be? Let me think a little bit.
So I think I would give it like a solid 7. It was good in a lot of aspects, but there was a lot of things that I had pet peeves about that just kind of like throughout the movie was just kind of like numbed into me. So I think a 7 is a very fair grade to give this movie.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. I think I might give it like a 7.5, maybe 8, just because it was,
Hmm.
something that I was not expecting. I definitely think it was a different view on the whole like aliens. So I think the story was really good. I do have some pet peeves about like you said. I think parts of it were a little too long, like dragged out. But I would give it like 7.5, maybe 8. I definitely would. I think I hope there's a sequel because I think I would like to see the sequel if there is one.
Yeah, I think we Googled afterwards and they said that there were possibly filming one in February of 2021. So I would love to see how that continues. See what happens from there.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely like to. If there was a sequel, I definitely would watch it.
Yeah. But as always, guys, this was Beyond the Perception. Thank you guys. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And see you guys next time.
See you guys.